You know, when you try to picture the birth of a new music genre, your mind probably goes straight to a really specific organic kind of scene. Like, picture it.
Oh, for sure.
You're standing in this sweaty, dimly lit underground club, maybe, I don't know, late 70s, early 80s, and the bass is just thumping so hard, it literally vibrates your ribs.
Yeah, that classic physical feeling.
Right. And the crowd is just this ocean of movement, completely lost in the rhythm.
Yeah.
And the DJ is up there blending records in a way that, like, no one has ever heard before. It's super communal, it's slow, and usually the people making the music aren't even the ones who name it.
Right, they're just playing what feels good.
Exactly. Fans or music journalists come along years later, look back at that era and go, oh, that sound. Yeah, that's house, or, that's techno. House music didn't have a patent pending, right?
No, absolutely not. Techno definitely didn't have some corporate trademark attached to its first vinyl pressing.
Exactly. It was just a localized vibe that eventually, crystallized into a category.
Which is the standard historical model, really. I mean, genres are almost always retrospective. They function as a classification system that gets applied to a cultural movement long after the initial spark has, caught fire and spread.
Yeah.
The community basically builds the house, and the critics are the ones who come by later and put the address on the mailbox.
Right. But today, we're looking at a situation that completely shatters that traditional model. Because today's deep dive is about this 54-year-old solo producer based down in Florida. His name is Edwin D'Costa.
Yeah.
And in April of 2026, Edwin sat down and intentionally engineered, documented, and claimed a brand new music genre from absolute scratch.
Wow.
Yeah, he named it New Trash Disco. And he did it entirely on his own before a single fan even knew the music existed.
Which completely subverts how we understand music history, honestly. I mean, we are looking through a massive stack of sources today. They detail his personal background, his highly specific production workflow, and this intense legal and data tracking strategy that he essentially built as a fortress around this new genre.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because usually, discovering a genre is kind of like finding a new island that formed organically over millennia, right? You have volcanic activity, shifting tectonic plates, centuries of tides shaping the beaches.
A natural process.
Right. But what we're looking at today is a guy basically building an island from scratch. He is pouring the concrete, artificially shaping the coastline, and immediately planting a flag with his own corporate logo on it before the cement is even dry.
What's fascinating here is the core tension driving this entire project, because on one side, you have the collision of raw, rebellious, artistic expression, like the sweat, the bass, the total unpredictability of a dance floor.
Yeah.
But on the other side, that raw expression is crashing headfirst into this hyper-organized, cryptographic business tracking system. You have pure art and rigid administration just forced to exist in the exact same space.
It's wild. But before we dig into that whole legal fortress he built, we really need to understand the music itself. Because, if you're going to go through all the trouble of creating a new category, the sound actually has to justify it.
Right. It needs to sound distinct.
Exactly. Why does this need its own name? So let's explore the sonic architecture of New Trash Disco.
Well, to really contextualize New Trash Disco, I think we should first look at New Disco, which is a well-established genre that you hear all the time today.
Sure.
New Disco essentially takes the classic 70s disco era and modernizes it. Producers take those classic string sections and those four-on-the-floor beats, but they apply contemporary sound design to them.
Right, so it sounds really clean.
Exactly. The kicks are punchier, the bass lines are way tighter, and the overall mix is just pristine.
But New Trash Disco diverges from that completely. Looking at our notes, it sits in a very specific pocket, right around 118 to 126 beats per minute. It takes all the soul and the rhythmic warmth of classic disco, but he intentionally runs all of those elements through a filter of imperfection.
Yes. He relies really heavily on gritty textures, heavy distortion, and lo-fi broken sounds.
Which, brings up a thought I had while I was listening to the sources. The word trash, calling your own music trash seems like you're bracing for impact,
It is a bit confrontational.
Right. It reminds me of buying a synthetic diamond versus a natural one. Modern music is the synthetic diamond. It's flawless, lab-grown, mathematically perfect, but Edwin seems to be selling the flawed cloudy diamond because the flaws are what make it authentic.
That's a great comparison.
Like, is this grit just an aesthetic gimmick to stand out on a crowded Spotify playlist? Or is there a deeper philosophy here?
I mean, looking at the sources, it's far from a gimmick. It really is the foundational philosophy of the entire genre. You have to consider the environment that most producers work in today.
Right, just sitting at a laptop.
Exactly. In modern production software, mathematical perfection is just the default state. It takes literally zero effort to make a kick drum perfectly quantized to the grid or to make a synthesizer sound crystal clear. You actually have to work incredibly hard to make digital audio sound authentically broken.
Wow, yeah, I never thought about it like that.
So the grit isn't a flaw in New Trash Disco. The grit is the defining characteristic.
So he's deliberately fighting against the software's urge to make everything sound pristine.
Precisely. By injecting all this distortion and these lo-fi textures, he creates a really stark tension between elegance, like those soaring disco strings, and just total rawness.
Yeah.
And that tension is designed to resonate physically with you as a listener. When you hear a distorted bass line that feels like it's pushing a club speaker to its absolute breaking point, your body reacts to that perceived danger. It feels alive.
It feels like the room is shaking. And because this music is fundamentally about that physical raw energy, it makes total sense that Edwin didn't just invent this sound out of thin air. It's a direct translation of his lived experience.
Oh, absolutely. His background is this fascinating, completely nonlinear progression that entirely informs this aesthetic. I mean, he's 54 years old. It means he's lived through multiple massive shifts in music technology.
Yeah, he's seen a lot.
And he started his journey with classical training, which gives him this deep foundational understanding of harmonic structure. Then he actually spent time playing metal.
Wait, metal?
Yeah, which is where his appreciation for raw, aggressive distortion really originates. But the crucial piece of the puzzle, the thing that ties it all together, is the years he spent as a DJ in New York City clubs.
Which is such a specific, intense environment. I mean, on April 16, 2026, he dropped his debut release on YouTube. It was titled New Trash Disco Mix Volume 1, and he deliberately added a geography tag to that video. He tagged it New York New Disco.
Right, he's explicitly tracing the lineage of the sound back to those club roots.
But here's what I'm trying to bridge here. Because how does spinning records for an unpredictable, sweaty NYC crowd teach a producer about how music actually functions? And how on earth does that translate to a guy making music completely isolated in a home studio 20 years later?
Yep.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, those NYC club years act as the emotional and psychological core of New Trash Disco. I mean, when you're a DJ in a physical space, you are essentially conducting a real-time study in human psychology.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You learn exactly what frequencies compel people to move. You learn how long you can hold a drum break to build tension before the crowd gets bored.
Right.
And exactly when to drop the bass to release that tension.
Like muscle memory, you just internalize the physics of the room.
Exactly that. And that internalized memory is what prevents New Trash Disco from being just some sterile academic bedroom experiment. Even though he is producing alone in Florida now, he is composing with the physical memory of a New York dance floor right in his head.
The music retains the phantom energy of the club.
Exactly.
Okay, but this brings me to a massive paradox in Edwin's workflow. To capture that unpredictable, sweaty club energy consistently as a solo producer, he did something that sounds totally counterintuitive. He wrote a rigid, formal rule book for his raw and broken sound.
Yeah, he essentially engineered a system for spontaneity. He authored this comprehensive document called the New Trash Disco Production Bible.
A literal Bible.
A literal Bible. It outlines his entire aesthetic philosophy, the structural elements required for a track, the strict BPM parameters we mentioned, and highly specific production guidelines.
And he also locked in a very specific tool stack. Our sources note he relies on Logic Pro 12 for the heavy lifting of the production. He uses a software called Mixed-In Key for harmonic analysis, and then Tractor DJ by Native Instruments for his live mixing.
Right, a very defined set of tools.
But he went a step further than just writing down rules. He created 20 proprietary MIDI drop blueprints. These are actual .mid files engineered to hold the specific rhythmic and harmonic DNA of the genre, designed so he can literally just drag and drop them straight into Logic Pro 12.
Yeah, that is the foundation of his entire workflow.
But I have to challenge this approach, right? Because if the entire ethos of New Trash Disco is about rejecting perfection and embracing raw, broken trash energy, doesn't creating a literal Bible of rules and using drag-and-drop MIDI templates completely destroy the punk rock spirit of it.
I can see why you'd say that.
It just feels like an architect drawing up a rigid blueprint for a riot.
I see the contradiction for sure, but in practice, it functions very differently. We often assume that artistic freedom means staring at a blank canvas with zero constraints.
Right, just pure inspiration.
Exactly, but in reality, absolute freedom can be paralyzing. By establishing a rigid framework, Edwin is actually managing his cognitive load. Think about the mixed-in key software, for example.
Right.
It analyzes audio files and tells you the exact musical key they're in. By using that, he ensures his really heavy, distorted bass lines aren't clashing harmonically with his melodic elements and just turning the whole mix into unlistenable mud.
Oh, I see. So it's less about automating the creativity and more like a chef setting up their mise en place.
Yes.
Like he's chopping all the vegetables and prepping the sauces way before the dinner rush, so when things get totally chaotic, he can just cook.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. The MIDI drops give him the skeleton of the track instantly, because he doesn't have to waste 2 hours agonizing over where to place a hi-hat or, how to structure the intro. He frees up all of his mental bandwidth to focus exclusively on the texturing.
A vibe.
Right? He gets to spend his time twisting the distortion knobs, breaking the sounds, and injecting that vital vibe. The rigid structure is actually what allows the chaos to flourish.
That makes a lot of sense. The rules protect the vibe.
Exactly.
But Edwin didn't just stop at building a production framework. He took this into an entirely different stratosphere by building an ironclad legal and historical fortress around his creation. This is where he really transitions from being just an artist in a studio to operating as a one-man corporate institution. 786 Music LLC.
The sheer density of the business infrastructure he set up is staggering for a solo independent artist. Just look at his rights management. He distributes his catalog globally through Symphonic, but he also holds registrations with BMI, Sound Exchange, the MLC, and Songtrust.
Okay, let me pause you there because for anyone who doesn't work in music publishing, that just sounds like a random list of corporate acronyms.
Fair enough.
If Symphonic is already putting his music on Spotify and Apple Music, why does an independent guy down in Florida need 4 different organizations tracking his rights?
Well, because each organization guards a completely different door to his revenue and his ownership. BMI is a performing rights organization. They track and pay him when his music is played publicly, like if a DJ actually spins his track in a physical club or it plays on terrestrial radio.
Okay.
But Sound Exchange is entirely different. They collect digital performance royalties, which means they pay him if his song is played on non-interactive digital platforms like SiriusXM or Pandora.
Okay, so that covers public and digital radio. What about the MLC and Songtrust?
Right, so the MLC, or Mechanical Licensing Collective, ensures he gets paid his mechanical royalties. That's the money owed to the songwriter every time a track is streamed or downloaded in the US.
Got it.
And Songtrust basically acts as his global publishing administrator, making sure those exact same mechanical royalties are collected from international territories.
Wow.
He isn't just releasing music, he is aggressively plugging himself into the entire global financial grid of the music industry.
And he's also carving out a direct-to-consumer lane, too. Our notes show he's selling tracks directly to fans via Bandcamp at $10.50 a pop, which is a premium price point for a digital download.
Definitely.
Proves he values the work highly. But here's where it gets really interesting. It's not just the financial tracking. It is the obsessive, forensic level of data he attaches to the audio files themselves. Our sources show he uses something called BWF Meta Edit,
which is an incredibly specific tool. BWF stands for Broadcast Wave Format. It allows a producer to embed deep metadata directly into the header of the audio file itself, rather than just tagging an MP3.
Exactly. He is stamping his ownership directly into the DNA of the file. He also uses an internal catalog system, the 786M0XX sequence. And he assigns an ISRC, an International Standard Recording Code, to every single track.
Which is super important.
Yeah, our notes show that the format QT4B325XXXXX. For context, an ISRC is basically a digital license plate. QT is a country code, 4B3 identifies Edwin as the registrant, and 25 represents the year. It ensures that no matter where this file travels on the internet, it is globally recognized as his.
It's permanent.
Yeah, and furthermore, he maintains a Notion database with exactly 238 distinct data points for every single track.
It's an archival mindset. He's treating his own hard drive like the Library of Congress.
But the absolute wildest part of this data strategy is what he does in his computer's terminal. He generates an actual SHA-256 cryptographic hash for every single track.
This is where it goes to a whole other level.
Right. Now, if you are not a cybersecurity expert or deep into crypto, a SHA-256 hash is essentially an unbreakable digital fingerprint. It runs the data of his audio file through a complex algorithm and spits out a unique string of letters and numbers. If someone steals his file and changes even one single pixel of the album art or alters one second of the audio, the hash changes completely.
It is a verifiable proof of existence.
Exactly. By generating this hash and documenting it, Edwin is basically burying a digital time capsule with an indestructible GPS tracker attached to it.
Right.
If New Trash Disco blows up in 5 years and some massive major label artist tries to claim they invented the sound, nobody can steal the credit. Edwin has the actual cryptographic math to prove he was there first.
This raises an important question, though. We are talking about tracking files and protecting revenue, but zooming out to the cultural level, can one person actually own a genre?
Right. Because going back to our intro, genres have always belonged to the people. They belong to the community dancing to them.
And Edwin seems highly aware of this philosophical vulnerability. To protect his claim over the genre name itself, he initiated a USPTO trademark strategy.
A federal trademark?
Yes. He started with a Phase 1 Class 041 federal filing, which he specifically timed to coincide with the release of the official New Trash Disco anthem.
Okay, help us understand the mechanics of that. What exactly does a Class 041 filing do for an independent artist?
So in the United States Patent and Trademark Office, Class 041 specifically covers education and entertainment services. This is crucial. He isn't just trademarking a band name, he is trademarking New Trash Disco as an entertainment service.
Oh, wow.
But we have to clearly separate the law from the culture here. You absolutely cannot legally own a musical style. You cannot copyright a BPM or a distorted bass line or a hi-hat pattern. If another producer in London wants to make a gritty, lo-fi, 122 BPM disco track, Edwin cannot stop them.
Right.
Or does he want to?
So he owns the brand umbrella of New Trash Disco, but not the acoustic rain falling underneath it.
That is a great way to put it. If someone makes a Spotify playlist called Gritty New Disco, they are totally fine. But if they try to market a festival stage or a compilation album using the exact phrase New Trash Disco, Edwin has the legal leverage to intervene.
Wow.
By executing this trademark filing and meticulously documenting his files with BWF metadata and SHA-256 hashes, he is establishing a perimeter. He is daring a community to form around his sound, but he is legally ensuring that the house they build is constructed on land he already owns the deed to.
So what does this all mean? Why should you, listening to this right now on your commute or while walking the dog, care about a 54-year-old producer meticulously filing trademarks and generating cryptographic hashes in Florida?
It's a valid question.
Right, because Edwin D'Costa is proving something massive about the era of culture we are living in right now. He proves that in the modern digital age, you do not need a massive team of executives. You do not need a major record label advance.
No, not at all.
You don't even need a local scene of people around you to build, document, and claim a piece of culture. You could do it yourself with a laptop, immense discipline, and a radically clear vision.
It really is a masterclass in independent world building. I mean, he didn't wait for a journalist to discover him and define his sound. He didn't wait for permission from the industry gatekeepers. He built the world, locked the gates, and then handed out the keys entirely on his own terms.
He absolutely did. And despite all the rigid Notion databases, the complex terminal codes, the PRO registrations, and the USPTO federal filings, he never lost sight of what the music is actually supposed to do to a human body. He closes his work with a motto that serves as the ultimate philosophy for 786 Music LLC, he states. THEVIBEISTHEONLYRULE.
Which is a beautiful contradiction, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because beneath this incredibly heavy, impenetrable armor of intellectual property law and cryptographic tracking, the beating heart of the project is just pure, unadulterated feeling. But examining Edwin's strategy does leave us with a final thought to mull over regarding the future of music. If independent artists now have the tools to cryptographically hash their tracks, embed deep metadata, and aggressively trademark new genre names before a community even has a chance to form around them, what happens to the future of underground music? Will the next great musical movement be born organically from the sweat and chaos of a crowded dance floor? Or will it be legally engineered, perfectly documented, and waiting for us in a Notion database before we even hear the first kick drum?
Man, Will we ever just stumble onto a new, uncharted island again? Or is every inch of the musical ocean about to be zoned, permitted, and trademarked before the concrete even dries? Something to think about the next time you find yourself getting lost in a brand new sound.